Hey guys, peace. Welcome to another chit chat. Hope you're well. I did upload a video earlier this morning when I woke up, and the title was Judas and Jesus. And I said I was going to come back on and sort of talk a little bit more about that, or tell the story of Judas and Jesus, maybe for those who don't know, and sort of connect it. If you know the story, it's rather obvious. I've been out talking a lot, so my voice is just a little, you can hear it a bit. But like I said, I did want to come back on and just sort of clean that up, maybe talk about a few other things as well. So, Judas and Jesus, what is that story all about? Well, Judas was one of the disciples of Jesus, and there's a really good movie. I can't remember what it's called because there are a lot of movies about Jesus, but this one I think had, is his name River Phoenix? Or I don't know. It's a really popular actor. I think it's River Phoenix. I know, I'm so sorry. I know River Phoenix is probably like somebody that everybody knows. But Joaquin, maybe it's Joaquin. River's the one that is no longer with us, I believe. So, or it's one of them. It's not the one that's passed. It's the other one that played the Joker, I think. So he plays Jesus in this movie, and it's really good. I saw it like maybe several months back on YouTube or something, and it's really good. It's like a modern version of Jesus, and it really captured me in a way that no other Christian Jesus film has. It put like a sort of new spin on what Jesus' whole demonstration was about, whether you believe in it or not. You know, it's a story, a narrative, right? If you get a chance, check that out. Even if you're not into Jesus, it's a very sort of moving film. So, and in that film, Judas, all of the characters are, and I can't remember the name of the director because he's a director that many of you would probably know, who's a really good director, and he's the one that put this very contemporary spin on and sort of avant-garde, directorial, cinematic, and even the script was just a little different. So anyway, Judas was one of Jesus's disciples, and he was the one, and I'm sure you guys know this. I don't know why I'm recounting this story, but Judas is the one that betrayed Jesus, right? But in this film, I really like the take because it sort of broke down Judas's character to not necessarily be this bad guy, right? He was just a very ambitious person. And when I say ambitious, maybe in the practical sense, but spiritually, he had a vision that Jesus was going to really become king and really take over. And I think the background was that he had a son that had died, I believe, or something like that. His son had died, and he really wanted to be avenged for that. So he really was hoping, he was really believing that politically, that, what Jesus brought to the table, and the promise that came along with, with his message would usurp the present day political system. And somehow that was going to make everything right that had, to do with his son. So he was a very practical person. And I think in the last video I mentioned that Judas was if I had to put an astrological sign to Judas, I would say that he was a Capricorn. And that kind of goes along with the practical side, but he was very complex, and very sensitive, I would say. But his sensitivity was not like a water sign sensitivity. It was more like he had grown to be, skeptical and pessimistic as a result of the failings of, what he had evaluated as, a doomed humanity, so to speak. And that in and of itself is a story, right? Because a lot of people with that type of character, you could say, also could understand how, people turn into, sort of pessimistic people as a result of, seeing the downfall, moralistically and ethically, of the average human being, and just being disappointed by people and the choices they make and the way they choose to, conduct themselves in the world. And after so much of that, you just really lose faith in humanity, right? I mean, we've all probably been there. So, in this I'm going to use this movie as my talking point, even though there's probably more that I could say, and if I think of it, I will. But in the movie, the way that they have it is that when he betrays Jesus, it's really to sort of like test him, or to push him to bring it, to push him to step up to the plate. Because throughout the story, he's always sort of like egging Jesus on, like, come on, now's the time. Like, like declare your kingship, because he has all these followers, It would kind of be akin to social media, right? Or what the Antichrist will probably use, social media, if there is such a character, which I kind of believe there is. I do. Or there will be. I do. I don't see why not. This narrative is just as likely as any other. So, he's really popular, of course, amongst the people, amongst his followers. He does all these good deeds and miracles, performs miracles, heals people. You guys know, yada yada, the whole 9 yards. And so, mistakenly, Judas is always thinking that Jesus is going to get this ego boost and just, and just do it one day. Just take over everything, declare himself king. Lightning's going to come flashing. The heavens are going to open. It's going to be like Moses parting the Red Sea, and voila, evil will be, cleansed from the earth. Jesus will take the throne, and it'll usher in this huge, wonderful era of peace and love, right? But Jesus is like sort of always trying to tell Judas, of course, Jesus was this complex character too. So he didn't speak things straight out. He spoke about, he taught in parables and, sort of little riddles and stuff, or in ways that, not meaning to be obscure, but giving the person, their own path toward understanding, and not just, didactically spelling everything out to people, because it's a wisdom, it's an understanding of the heart, right? And what he was saying was just so revolutionary and so ahead of even many people, even our time. With New Jerusalem, and with what the kingdom that is coming, again, poor Judas took it literally to mean that there was, and not to say that it's not going to be literal, but I feel that what the message was is that the kingdom begins on the inside. It's a revolution of the heart. It's a revolution of the spirit. It's a revolution of human consciousness to understand. Because remember, the way that things were being conducted at that time. I mean, it was really, Old Testament, type stuff, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, or, Islamic type law, and all these, laws that were just really based on logic. Even, go back to, I mean, prior to that, it was not probably, but Ifa, some version of, tribal law that had already been established by the ancestors. And so what Jesus was bringing was a departure from that and saying, nah, we're not doing it like that anymore, because the consciousness of love and the consciousness of empathy and stuff that it really, there's a lot of theories, as I've discussed before, that says Jesus learned a lot from the East. Like he went to India and even Japan. There's history of sightings of him in Japan and early Christians in Japan, etc. So poor Judas, he just kind of had a more practical perspective, and he had ambition for the way that he wanted this thing to turn out. And that's why I say it reminds me of a Capricorn, because he had Capricorn, Scorpio, who else? Just kind of control issues in the shadow aspect, and wanted it to all look a certain way, or to, become a certain way. So he thought he would just get in there and try to change destiny a little and nudge the situation. So him in this film, I like the version because it really lets him slightly off the hook, not off the hook, but it shows that when he gave Jesus up to the guards, he was so angry, sort of, and disappointed that Jesus hadn't already done this. Like, come on, man, let's get this thing started. Like, we've been roaming around doing all this like vagabond stuff, and I'm ready for this thing to get big and to happen. And so that the narrative was sort of like, so when he gave Jesus away, he was doing it as a way to sort of activate Jesus's mission. The way that I always tell the story about the X-Men. I don't know which one it was. I believe it was the X-Men because it was so long ago. I believe it was because it was that girl. What's her name? Jean or something like that. I think. Don't quote me because my memory is awful. But they were, the bad guys were trying to get her to activate her power. And she didn't know she had a power. And so he kept doing things to trigger her, right? It was a triggering. And I know all about this too, because it's been said that those of us who have quote unquote superpowers or gifts, that are destructive, a lot of times don't know it because we didn't come here to use them. But it's only when you really, so we don't even we don't call them up, like a magician. And that's another thing. I had a quote that I had wrote earlier in the week about bad magicians who, who use magic, for the wrong purposes in the wrong way. That's another story. I'll go into that in a minute. So, so anyway, they killed her mother, and because everything they had done up until then she hadn't, every time they tried to get her, she like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any powers. What are you talking about? I don't have any powers. And then finally, they killed her mother in front of her. And boy, that's when all her little psychic kinetic gifts just like woke up. And because she was considered to be the most destructive, the strongest with these really destructive powers, right? So, that's what Judas was trying to do for Jesus in this narrative. And it backfired on him because that's not what Jesus's agenda was. And he didn't come for that. So when he realized that, oh my God, they're really going to crucify this dude. And he had already told me, because Jesus was a male oracle too. It's like he had already told me that I would betray him or someone, So I like that. I don't know if that's true, if Judas really, could be let off the hook with that narrative that he did not mean to do it, or if he really did, if he really was just a sellout. But the whole point was, I woke up this morning thinking about those who betray people, especially the ones that they are close to and the ones that have love for them and who they have love for. And what is, what's that, where does that come from? How could you do something like that? I would say that it's because you choose the self over others, service to self versus service to others, which is very big in our narcissistic culture right now. So, in a way, Judas did that because he chose, even though he did love Jesus and did believe in him, he chose his version of what that mission was supposed to be about, to benefit him, to bring about an outcome that he personally wanted. So yeah. But what I had, I just wanted to see, it was like a little quote that I had wrote the other day. Like earlier, another theme that has come up, and I'm watching House of Dragons, and I did a little short today, but this concept of villain versus hero, right? That's so, like, you got to ask yourself sometimes, are you playing the villain? Are you playing a hero? What is a villain? What is a hero? So with regard to magic, what I said was it wasn't even thinking, I was having like a channel, and, it was going back in history with Isis, who taught magic. It's told in Kemet mythology, and in other mythologies, it's other goddesses. It's usually a goddess. I don't think I've ever recalled of a mythology that had a god that gave the magic to humanity, the magic arts and even sciences that come from that, alchemy, etc. But the channel was, we taught you magic and you used it for selfish means, selfish, unenlightened means, right? When that's not what it was for, it's not for self, but for service of others. And this also goes along with the royal houses, the people who the families and bloodlines that ruled. It was never supposed to be for power, for personal power and greed and gain. That's what it descended to. And that's what most people today, though, covet it for. They covet it for their own. Again, I think the video I did earlier was about, I think I mentioned in there, because when I woke up this morning, I had really gone into a channel of a bit of empathy, not a whole lot, because you can't be completely empathetic with these, freaking demons and demonic people who are housing demons, because they become emboldened when, you don't call them out on their BS, right? They need to understand that they're not winning, by their own, they're not winning at all, but they don't win anything from their own, their own power devices. But yeah, royalty and rulership is about service, not about the insecurity of, individual egos that seek to gain security because they don't have a true security. So they're obsessed with material or external security because they don't have a genuine security, inner security. They're obsessed with external power because they don't have an internal power, right? And we're all trained for this. But some of us never evolved to recognize how to balance it, or to look at and at least understand the truth as we also participate in the external pursuit, right? Because really the Christian thing is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And I mean, we could cross correlate that into any belief system. You go into the internal, esoteric, mystic sciences or internal sciences, and that helps you gain, or not helps you gain, because a lot of people did do that. A lot of, what are these things called? Let me slow down for a second. These different societies that use the mystical arts to feed and gain their external power and material success. We know that. So yeah, magic was never meant for that. And back to poor Judas, who didn't realize, I don't know how that connected, but I'm just going to segue back because I don't know how I got off track. I just feel sorry for, I do feel sorry, but not so sorry that I used to feel sorry in a very, I don't know how I'm trying to say this. I mean, I do feel sorry ultimately in my highest spiritual aspect, but in my lower aspect, I don't feel too sorry because I've engaged these idiots for almost a half a century, and they just don't seem to learn. You know what I'm saying? The only way certain characters learn is through their own karmic lessons. And so they have to go through things. They have to go through suffering. They call it up on themselves. And they really are too ignorant to even realize that that's what they're doing, because they can't see that the more they exercise the betrayal of the self, that projects as the betrayal of others, the more that they continue this wheel of negative karmic experience. So anyway, that was pretty much that. And I'm trying to remember why I brought that up. Oh no, I said it. It's because I was talking about just how people don't realize what they are, getting themselves into when they go after other innocent people, trying to harvest their energy, So anyway, yeah, I think that's that. I could stop it here. There's something else I wanted to talk about, but I think I'm going to do another video on that. It's about the the reality that we're in, that we're not in, and how that, you know, what the progression of that has been since maybe around 2012 or so. And it just keeps sort of exponentially growing each year into something that is less and less connected to what we recall as our past. We get caught up in like the Mandela effect and other things like that. So I had written a journal a few days ago. It's my own sort of personal experience with, and it actually has to do with death, like how I feel like I've died a few times, several times actually, and I could feel myself sort of ascend. And you know, I either thought that I didn't really think I was going to die because it had a different texture, but it was very mystical and just beautiful. And I thought that it was going to usher in like a three-dimensional holographic change to, you know, the main frame. But I noticed we'd get caught back up in a loop again that seemed to devolve. And there were parts of me, though, that had already ascended, you know. So I want to talk a little bit about that in the next video. Okay. All right. I think that is it for now. Thank you for watching. If you've watched, I'm going to try to start stepping up my channel. So I will ask you, I haven't before, to go ahead and subscribe and like the video, please. And feel free to comment and let me know if there's something, some content or a topic you'd like me to talk about. And yeah, okay. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Peace.